Hi, everybody. All right, before anything else, I wanted to say thank you very much to Atlas and to Mr. Martin Dormish, who actually came out here in person to see the presentations. It was actually Mr. Dormish's idea to approach the ICTD lab class last semester, with which I worked with Joe, Abby, and Manny, to create a web-based community networking platform for Broomfield, Colorado. The goal of this was to create something that would act as a community hub to further the development not only of communication within the community, but on the redistribution of resources, and the redistribution of resources which otherwise are not reaching people in need. This is that final mile when you have all the resources that you could get to these people, people who need them, people who are just unable to find out where those resources are, and they just don't know how to get them. So how do you get those things that those people need right over, just one more step? When we were originally contacted, the question was posed as one of communication, where the service providers didn't know what the community needed. But as we dove deeper, it turns out the service providers were not only having problems reaching the people of Broomfield, but the people of Broomfield couldn't talk to those who were able to help them. Nor could the service providers actually reach out to other service providers and give them the information that they could use to reach their own communities. In addition to this problem, there's an issue of existing information being unreliable, in that the information that you were able to find online or in the white pages or even posted in churches and schools was either out of date or completely inaccurate. This information was gained not only from talking to service providers in Broomfield, but by also talking to the Broomfield Social Networking Center and the Broomfield City Hall as well. So the solution to this was to create a community networking page that would act as a hub of communication not only between service providers and service providers, but between community members and service providers, as well as service providers outside of Broomfield, meaning that anybody from outside of Broomfield who either wanted to communicate with people within Broomfield or had things that Broomfield members could benefit from would be able to see their need and reach out to them. Inversely, those who had needs that they didn't know how to talk about or how to reach or find help for could go the opposite direction and find help from service providers in the community or to those beyond Broomfield itself. To do this, we needed to create a website that was intuitive to navigate and could be updated not only by the service providers themselves, but the information given by the service providers could be critiqued by the community members. So during the lab class, we created a working prototype, which was then transferred into the initial version of what would be created during the practicum itself. So from that initial prototype that I made with my group in ICTD Lab, I ended up making two functional websites. One was the Broomfield Community Networking page itself, which contains a directory of service providers, a bulletin board where people could post their needs and updates about the community, classified sections to say what they might have that other people could benefit from, and forums where community members could talk to other community members as well as to the service providers themselves. In addition to this, a secondary goal was to create a national sister site which would hold information about the Broomfield Community Network itself, the community network project as a whole, and this is a critical change, would contain a site distribution package where it would contain installation files which would replicate this version of the site standard with the standard setup so that anybody wanting to create a community service network for their community could do so with this package, as well as the obvious documentation and support necessary to keep such a thing alive. To do this, we used a platform of Drupal 7 in the prototype, which I carried over in the practicum as well. Drupal was chosen because it has extensive support, not just that it's free, but that if there were any problems from anybody wanting to set up their own version of the site or customize it further, they would have the ability to do so from everybody having that information online, from reaching out to people in the Drupal community, and from the fact that Drupal is open source, so you can change anything you want to change. So I altered the default template, only because the default template means you can customize it further if there is a need to do so. But I also added and altered modules to improve functionality, as well as reaching beyond the site itself. Some of these would not work the way they were designed to work, nor were they meant to be used for a nonprofit or for outreach purposes. However, a lot of them were very useful to do so, and once they were customized further and tweaked just slightly, they were able to work perfectly. These were all packaged together, so all you have to do is download the complete package. It comes with the template, comes with the modules, comes from the original setup, install it, and the directions for doing so are included in the user manual itself. So what's the results? The results of the practicum in terms of the live pages were the Broomfield Community Network, which is a standard deployment containing all of the default things for communication and for getting those resources to the people in need, as well as a setup in terms of language, because the customization needed to be tweaked slightly. Those in Broomfield have specific language needs for the Broomfield lower income communities. But other communities might have needs for more Chinese or Laotian, or Spanish is the default in Colorado, but you can change this further. That's just one example of doing so. The national site, in contrast, is a completely customized installation, which removes some of the communication infrastructure in order to provide static information. These two sites also serve as the standards for anybody seeking to clone these sites, because the national site would be better run by one single person. This contains static information that one person can be responsible for. In contrast, the Broomfield Community Network would need not only a top-tier user to control what's being used, but needs the input of those community service providers to make sure that their own information is up to date and that things being posted are not abusive or misleading to the people who are seeking their services. This would contain information like the About page about the Community and Service Network, as well as the file distribution packages, which is where it's currently housed if anybody wants to download them. This one is already opened up to select members of the community. These are people who are in charge of churches, nonprofit organizations, or represent schools, but it will be open to the general public starting this summer. In addition to the live sites, we've got the installation package online as well. So if anybody wants to take this and download it and set it up, these are currently available and can be downloaded at any time. All you do is download them, set them up using a Drupal installation on your own server, and your site is ready to go. This site itself can later be linked to the national page by contacting the national page. The information is at the bottom there if you log in right now. But that way you can network with other community service networks across the country. Each time one is updated, the user manual actually tells you to go to the national page, say that your site exists. The person in charge of the national site will vet that it is legitimate, link it back, and you'll be able to communicate from your site to anybody else around the country, thus extending those communication structures beyond the community itself. So, monitoring and evaluation. For the original setup during the lab, we did a number of outreach activities. However, for this lab, seeing as it's still in the beta phase and only has those limited users, we had to use a number of surveys as well as a bit of testing on one-on-one interviews and so forth. However, those have not been very plentiful. I needed to find out how people were using the site if they were not the higher level users providing the information. So in order to do that, I had to ask the site itself. And it turns out it's working rather well. The design things that we came up with during the ICTD lab, the whole easy to use, easy to navigate, were implemented well, and people can find the information they need in very few clicks. So far, people are only taking maybe 1 or 2 minutes to find the region that they need, and after that, the maximum time I've seen so far is about 5 minutes trying to find a specific listing. Apparently, that's what that person was looking for. But beyond that, they're ready to go. The server itself has been providing information about the amount of time spent. And that, too, seems extremely streamlined. Everyone seems to be able to navigate it very well. But we're waiting on more feedback. And once we have that feedback, the site itself can be customized further to meet those needs. If it's not easy to understand, we'll fix it. If it is easy to understand, we'll take that, keep it using, and go forward with it. So the results. In terms of the page itself and the viability of the project, there are still some questions remaining about the financial sustainability and legal status of the project. However, Mr. Dormish has already reached out to the Leeds School of Business, as well as a couple members of the Broomfield community, looking for help with both of these. If anybody's interested in helping with that project, the information to contact him and become part of the Community Network project is available on the national page. Initial feedback about the Broomfield page has also been fairly positive. We're waiting for more actual users and more people who have languages other than English as their first language to contribute to their, contribute their input and help us move forward with what's going on there. But otherwise, everything is fully functional. Initial feedback has been positive, and everybody seems to be able to navigate and find what they need as quickly as possible. The distribution bundle as well, record time for setting that up, complete installation, has been 5 minutes. That's downloading it and then putting it on a Drupal installation on a separate server. Anybody who wants to participate or wants to try out the installation bundle or view the existing pages can do so by going to socialgoodnetworktool.com. And any additional questions can be sent directly to me at isla.schanuel@colorado.edu.